Welcome to PIERRE Academy. In this tutorial, we'll walk you through the complete wiring process of a relay board. The wiring process starts with connecting the 12-volt plus output from the power supply to the power input terminal of the PIERRE controller. The 12-volt GND connection is then made to the controller's ground terminal to complete the power supply circuit. With that, the PIERRE controller is now powered and ready for further wiring. Next, we proceed to connect the upper components. Starting with the relay board, we connect the GND output of the PIERRE controller to the GND input of the relay board. The first output of the controller will control the mechanical relay, so we will connect the second output of the controller to the first input of the relay board. All 8 inputs of the relay board will be connected sequentially to the corresponding outputs of the controller. At this stage, since one end of the GND is already connected, we avoid duplicating the connection on the other end. We finish up by connecting the final relay output. The relay board is now completely wired. What remains is connecting the output devices. We start with the mechanical relay. Since we already freed up the first output for it, we connect this output to the input of the mechanical relay. We can provide the GND connection to the mechanical relay either from the relay board or from the PIERRE controller, but in this configuration, we are supplying it from the controller. We need a total of 4 lamps, 3 standard lamps, and 1 additional lamp that will be used to simulate the boiler in our setup. We proceed to wire these lamps into their designated positions. Each lamp requires a neutral connection, therefore, a neutral line is routed to each unit accordingly. The neutral connection for the boiler simulation lamp is also established. Finally, the remaining neutral wire is connected to the last lamp in the circuit. At this point, all devices in the setup have their neutral lines wired. We now move on to wiring the control lines. Since the boiler is a high power consumer, it will be controlled using a mechanical relay rather than a solid-state relay. Therefore, we connect the wire to the normally open output of the mechanical relay. Next, we connect the bulb to demonstrate dimming functionality using a finder dimmer module to control its brightness. We still have 2 more lamps to connect, and both of these will be controlled via the relay board. We wire 1 lamp into the output 1 on the relay board. Then we wire the other lamp into output 2. With that done, we only have one final step, supplying the phase live line to each of these components. We distribute the phase connections carefully, wiring each one appropriately into every second output since those are the free contacts on the relay. It's important to ensure the correct wiring method is used for safe operation. All components are now receiving power. We still need to supply both phase and neutral to the finder dimmer to ensure proper operation of the dimmable lamp. The phase will be sourced from the circuit breaker, and the neutral connection will now also be established. At this point, everything on the board is connected. Now we'll install the remaining components. First up is a motion sensor, which we'll wire as well. It requires a 12-volt input, ground, and has 1 input and 1 output. We need to connect the 12-volt to the input terminal. The 12-volt power in this configuration will come from the controller. Next, we connect the GND, which will also be supplied from the controller. The motion sensor provides a 12-volt output signal, which is then connected to the input of the PIERRE controller. To enable proper operation, the sensor cover must be closed. Next, we need to add a contact sensor. In this case, we'll use one that's typically embedded into Windows. We wire it to the controller's 12-volt plus and the second input. Now we connect a temperature sensor. It's important to note that this sensor requires a 5-volt power supply, not 12 volts, and must be wired into the proper 5-volt output. Using a precision screwdriver, we connect 5-volt power, the GND line, and the signal wire, which goes to the first configurable I/O pin. With this, the temperature sensor is also connected. But to do something useful with the sensor, like trigger actions instead of just reading values, we'll connect it to a thermic valve. Since we are out of neutrals in the terminal, we'll make space by clearing one terminal and then connect the neutral. The phase for this thermic valve will be wired to the next available output on the relay board, in this case, output 3. Next, we want to control a roller motor. This motor has 4 wires. It requires a neutral, a ground for safety, and 2 phase lines, one for each direction. We begin by connecting the neutral. Then we wire the ground. Finally, we connect the 2 direction wires to the next 2 available relay outputs. With that, the roller motor is fully wired. To control it not only from the app but also manually, we'll add a push button. The push button receives 12-volt power and has 2 directions. We connect each wire to the next 2 available input terminals to the PIERRE controller. Before we finish, we must also wire the control pins of the finder dimmer. First, we connect the positive input to the configurable I/O, which can provide a 0-10 voltage signal. This terminal is preset for dimming control, so it must be configured accordingly. Finally, we connect the GND, and with that, the wiring is complete. All devices are connected and functional, and the system is ready. Great job, and thank you for watching this PIERRE Academy tutorial.